Thank you so much, Hadley, and Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's really great to see you all, and it's great to be here today, just before we start the NATO summit. At this summit, we will address all the issues that affect our security. Russia's war in Ukraine, cyber, terrorism, disruptive technologies, and many other threats and challenges. But we also know that climate change poses a serious risk to us all. So therefore, I'm very pleased to be with you today at the first high-level dialogue on climate change and security, bringing together NATO allies with partner nations and other stakeholders from around the world. And I thank you all for being here today. From the high north to the Sahel, climate change is a crisis multiplier. More extreme weather devastates communities and fuels tensions and conflicts. Climate change matters for our security, so it matters for NATO. That is why NATO is determined to set the gold standard on addressing the security implications of climate change. Here in Madrid, leaders will endorse a new strategic concept, the Madrid Strategic Concept. It will state that climate change is a defining challenge of our time. For NATO, this means three things: increasing our understanding, adapting our alliance, and reducing our own emissions. First, increasing our understanding. Today, I am releasing our first ever assessment of how climate change affects our security. Our military assets, installations and activities, as well as our resilience and civilian preparedness. Climate change deeply affects the environment in which our women and men operate. From extreme heat in our training missions in Iraq to melting ice in the Arctic. And from rising sea levels and storms that threaten our naval bases to the hurricanes that disable our airfields. The list is long. There are many ways climate change affects our security. So second, we must adapt, providing our armed forces with the equipment they need to operate in extreme heat and extreme cold. Training them to assist in disaster relief, reinforcing our coastal facilities against rising water levels, and addressing the security implications of more economic and military activity in the high north. We have identified the initial steps in our adaptation. We now take account of climate change when planning our operations and our missions, and when developing new capabilities. This way, we make sure we remain effective in increasingly harsh environments. And third, we must reduce the impact of our military activities on the climate. We cannot compromise our military effectiveness. NATO is about preserving peace through a credible deterrence and defense. Nothing is more important. If we fail to preserve peace, we will also fail to fight climate change. At the same time, we also have a responsibility to reduce emissions. To this end, we have developed the first methodology for measuring NATO's greenhouse gas emissions, civilian and military. It sets out what to count and how to count it. And it will be made available to all allies to help them reduce their own military emissions. This is vital because what gets measured can get cut. Based on this new methodology, I can announce today the first emission targets for NATO as an organization. By 2030, we will reduce emissions by at least 45%, reducing to net zero by 2050. We have conducted thorough analysis of how to do this. It will not be easy, but it can be done. A big part of this will be our transition away from fossil fuels. All allies are committed to reducing their greenhouse gas emissions as part of the Paris Agreement. Adapting their militaries will contribute to this, including more green tech, such as renewables, climate-friendly synthetic fuels, and more energy-efficient solutions. There is a technological revolution happening right now, a green energy revolution, one that can be of huge benefit for our militaries. Already today, the best new cars are actual electric cars. And I believe that in the future, the most advanced military vehicles and the most resilient armed forces will be those that do not rely on fossil fuels. By making our equipment more efficient and by taking full advantage of new technologies, we can improve our militaries and strengthen our security, as well as help tackle climate change. It will also increase our resilience. The war in Ukraine shows the danger of being too dependent on commodities from authoritarian regimes. The way Russia is using energy as a weapon of coercion highlights the need to quickly wean off Russian oil and gas. At the same time, we must not swap one dependency for another. Lots of new green technologies and the rare earth minerals they require come from China. So we must diversify our energy sources and our suppliers. Another risk is creating a patchwork of incompatible systems, where all 30 NATO allies follow their own separate path towards energy security and adoption of new technologies. This would present serious risks to our interoperability. Instead, we should work together to ensure that national policies enhance our collective military strength, and NATO is the ideal platform for allies to coordinate our efforts. By setting shared benchmarks and standards, we can innovate together while maintaining our operational effectiveness. So therefore, I will ask NATO civilian and military authorities to develop a new Energy Transition by Design initiative and present it at the next high-level dialogue meeting next year. These high-level meetings will be held annually, establishing NATO as a nexus between climate and security. Climate change is not a threat that exists far beyond the horizon or long into the future. We see its impact on our security right now. We now have a plan with concrete actions to address the security risks of climate change, to ensure our alliance adapts to the new challenges, and to protect NATO's 1 billion citizens. Thank you so much.